And with that, we will now move to our next presentation. And so our next presenters are Keri Ewart, who is our lovely Med lecturer and a coordinator, EDI and community outreach. She is presenting on exposing environmental racism through the exploration of education technologies for equitable access with her students, Cody Peters and Carina Losito. So over to you, Keri, and welcome. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much. And I have to just honor my students, Cody and Carina, because I'm just along for the ride right now. It's really 100% them. And as new presenters to this series, as well as presenters in general, I'm just here to help. So I can't take a lot of the onus whatsoever. What I am going to do, though, is I am going to put the link to this Google slide presentation in the chat area so that everybody's able to access all of the links, all of the hyperlinks. There are QR codes on most pages, but it actually asks you to get involved, you know, the whole engagement piece. But I will pass it over to Cody to introduce the topic for him, and then I'll take it from there.
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Today, we are going to be presenting our resource on environmental racism and its connection to education and curriculum jamming, as well as numerous other topics that we've decided to incorporate into our website. I'm Cody Peters, obviously. And I am currently a student in the MET program, and I'm a student of Dr. Ewart in EdTech 590 this semester as well. Unfortunately, my project partner, Carina, is unable to join us today. She is busy at work and she couldn't get the time off. So it is just myself and Dr. Ewart that are presenting today.
Thank you, Cody. And I am Dr. Keri Ewart. I am a faculty member with the Master of Educational Technology program and also the coordinator for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, Decolonization, and Anti-Racism. And one of the many, many courses I teach is this course that Cody basically, and his partner Carina, created this resource for, is EdTech 531. And it will go into more detail about this, but really they are to identify different curriculums that are in need of jamming for the absence of missing voices, missing cultures, missing representation. And they had the esteemed pleasure of looking at the environmental racism and environmental justice as their core piece. So before we begin, I recognize that there is the land acknowledgement, but I am tuning in from Toronto, Ontario right now, and do want to very much appreciate and acknowledge the land of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, and the Huron-Wendat people. And in doing so, I'm so privileged. I'm actually in BC on Tuesday. So I do want to recognize kind of that world flyer all around and just appreciative and understanding of the impacts that colonialism has had on our land and on this beautiful space, and really recognizing the Indigenous caretakers of this land. And so this is a very, very important topic in addressing. And at this time, just want to recognize that we've done a brief introduction. We are going to pose this question to all of you. What is environmental justice to you? What is environmental racism? Discuss the necessity for curriculum jamming through education, as well as Cody is going to be sharing his website, his and Carina's website, which is the digital learning artifact and resource that was created. And then we have additional virtual tools and resources. Okay, and then open it up for a really what we're hoping to be, and from what we've heard from the previous presentation, a very rich discussion. So we're asking you to take literally 30 seconds to engage in Poll Everywhere. You can QR code it, you can link on it. Again, I will put, for any new joiners, I will put the link to our presentation again into the chat area. But if you can just take a moment and talk about what is environmental justice to you. You may use examples, but this is a really, really important focus, and I am going to pull this up. So again, you can get this code here. Go into pollev.com/my name, Keri Ewart, 843. Okay. Thank you already. I'm seeing some great resources here. Or some great, I'm reading the word resources. Some great answer here. Excellent. And I think Natasha has ingrained in me the honest to goodness importance of educational technology and utilizing so many different tools in so many capacities. So it wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't do this. So thank you, everyone. So we see things, people can live on their land safely. Love that. Addressing the environmental impact through a lens of equity. Taking care of environment and nature, access to resources. What I love about Poll Everywhere, if people have not used it before, is you can like it, you can dislike it, you can basically go through and identify which answers resonate with you. So it's great to use with students, especially not being able to, if somebody can't come up with an idea very quickly, then they can complement an idea that's on there. Okay, the reciprocal relationship. This is excellent. And please keep these coming, and we're going to post these so that they will be available on the presentation as well. Now, in terms of that, understanding the respect, the safety, the reciprocal nature, I hear a lot of First People's Principles of Learning actually in that whole idea of environmental justice. There is a recording from Carina. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it today. She's in the midst of teaching, but we're so pleased and appreciative that she was able to add this to this. So now we're going to use a completely different tool, Mentimeter. If anybody's used that before, it's menti.com. And I'm just going to put this code in the chat area so everybody can make it easy. So there's menti.com and the code is 36977923. Okay. And if you can take a moment just to answer in your opinion, and this is a word cloud. So just words, just ideas, any examples that you may have. And I'll take us over to our Mentimeter here. Okay. So again, you can see at the top here, who thought you'd actually have to work for it right now? I promise you we'll give you lots of great information. Okay. Actually, I can copy that link. I believe it will come up. Oh. I'm just going to refresh this quickly. Is everybody able to access this?
I can't see the questions or options when I go in.
Okay, the question was, and you know, if this isn't working, of course, adaptability, flexibility, 21st century competencies. The question was, what is environmental racism in your mind? If you do not have access to this Mentimeter, then can you just, you can post your question or your response in the chat area.
If you put the link in the chat, it would be easier to access.
It certainly would. Let's see if you can get it this way. I don't want to take too much time on this, but it's important. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Gabrielle. You know, as educators, we look down at that little note in the corner there and we see how many people are actually able to access. Again, if we're not able to access that quickly, please just use the chat area if you feel comfortable.
I think chat is probably the best option right now. I'm not seeing the options to post on the Mentimeter myself.
Okay. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we'll do just to start this, this is, we're having trouble with the audio here, but looking at, you can see on this page that it's really marginalized and oppressed communities that are typically impacted by different types of environmental issues. So for instance, the development of a sewage plant, or looking at a kilometer down the road, you can pour water perfectly from a tap, whereas in an Indigenous community or on a reserve, there's a boiled water or water advisory in place for decades. Even though government says that this is a major issue, we are going to rectify the situation, but that's not rectified. So when it is a form of racism that is directly impacting disenfranchised, marginalized, oppressed individuals, that deals with their safety in terms of environmental safety, their well-being, and very often, if you think of Erin Brockovich, the movie, if anybody has seen that, a very clear example of environmental racism. We hear in the news consistently about Indigenous water issues, boil water advisories, looking at people in marginalized communities, low-income housing areas that are contracting different types of cancers because of different sewage or different plants that are located in that area that would not necessarily or were not passed in more affluent areas. So this is basically the whole premise of environmental racism. And there is, and thank you. Sorry, was there a question? No, we are getting into this. We will have a very good conversation about this afterwards. I do just want to play Carina's The Necessity for Curriculum Jamming.
Cody and I learned during our time in EdTech 531 that curriculum jamming refers to the act of redesigning or reframing an area of a curriculum in a manner that focuses a critical lens on the content. This is done by engaging students in activities and experiences that allow them to reflect on and think critically about what was missing or misrepresented due to the way information was originally presented in their learning. In our initial search for existing information and resources on environmental racism, Cody and I found that there is a lack of material aimed at elementary school students, with still too few resources addressing environmental racism in the first few years of high school. In fact, Cody and I discovered that many adults we spoke with as we designed this resource could not explain the term environmental racism, nor give examples of its existence in their own province or country. This highlighted for us a glaring omission in the curriculum. We could see the need for a resource such as ours to introduce the topic of environmental racism and justice in an educational setting, with the aim of creating a more inclusive, equitable, and culturally sustaining future.
All right, and now I'd like to pass it to Cody to demonstrate this incredible resource that they have created. And I'm going to go to our live version of the resource, and I will put this in the chat as well so that everybody can follow along.
So, as we've mentioned, today we're presenting a resource that we've created for EdTech 531 that touches on environmental racism, its implication within the context of education, and some of the ways that we as educators can begin to incorporate these topics into an educational context through curriculum jamming, the generation of online open access resources, and learning scenarios that can function in both individual learning experiences and group or classroom settings. This project was built in the winter term 2 of 2022 for Dr. Ewart's EdTech 531 course that myself and Carina participated in, and has since been expanded upon by all three of us. We're working with the Ministry of Environment as well as the Ministry of Science to further this project, as we each believe in its value as a resource. To start things off, we begin at the homepage of our resource. In order to retain a sense of personal connection to this project, we felt it was important to establish our everyday context of our lives within Canada with a land acknowledgement. This draws attention to the unceded nature of the land on which we reside, and keeping with this theme of individual connection, we move on to establishing who we are, both myself and my partner in this project, Carina, as well as outlining our introduction to this resource and our reasons for pursuing this topic. We also include our own definition of what curriculum jamming is, why we're drawn to it as a concept, and how we envision it influencing this resource. Throughout the homepage, there are numerous resources, such as a short YouTube video on environmental racism, our outlines for the ED-IDA framework and how it informs our design, the Universal Design for Learning, and several other sections that highlight and contextualize this project within an educational framework. We really wanted to bring an emphasis to this and to establish a baseline understanding for all of these terms as we progress through the project, so as to fully enable users who may not be familiar with these terms or concepts to create a unified foundation for all of our users to build upon as they progress. In the next section here, we have a brief section that touches on urban transformation. If Dr. Ewart wouldn't mind pulling that up, please. Thank you very much. And its relationship with education, environmental racism, and community participation, as we believe there's a strong connection between these topics that merits further investigation. Moving forward, we have embedded a teacher's guide within the website in order to provide an outline and potential rubric for educators who wish to utilize or co-opt this resource for a classroom setting. But within the teacher's guide, we have also included a breakdown of the educational resources that can be found throughout the website, as well as a list of terms that are clearly and plainly defined, as we wanted to keep with our earlier theme of creating a baseline understanding of potentially unheard of or difficult to interpret terms and concepts, really in an effort to prevent misconstrued or misinterpreted terminology. Moving on to the core of the resource, we have a series of lessons that myself and Carina have developed and produced for all grade ranges from kindergarten all the way up to grade 12. Each lesson features numerous different technological integrations and participation activities that are all open access, as we wanted to provide a learning scenario that featured as few barriers of entry as possible. Each lesson is clearly outlined and broken down into different sections, with each embedded document having a brief summary of the lesson's topics and activities, as well as a suggested grade range, along with justification for the suggestion, so as to provide a sense of what level of competency should be expected from participants should these lessons be integrated into a classroom setting. Moving on to the next section of the website, we've established several areas of research that both myself and Carina, as well as Dr. Ewart, are interested in pursuing in the future, as we believe each of these topics, ranging from the historical roots of environmental racism in urban areas to advancing climate justice, are each extremely impactful on the educational context of environmental racism. There are several other tabs and components to the website, including an About Us page, which can be found here. On this page, you can find a brief introduction to myself and Carina, as well as a podcast episode that contains a reflective discussion between myself and Carina as we talk about our motivations behind this project. Additional pages on the website include a list of our academic sources, which we utilized in creating each resource that you can be found throughout the website, and informed our design process as we built this project as a whole. There's also a page that contains additional links to related resources that users may be interested in exploring themselves, should they want to dig deeper into the topics on their own time. Lastly, we've integrated a feedback function embedded within the website, as we believe that in order to continue developing this resource, we need to integrate user feedback into the future iterations of this project to better facilitate as intuitive of a learning environment as possible. We believe that by gathering feedback and integrating it into our future revisions and additions, we can continue to expand upon the topics of environmental racism in a continuous dialogue on its implications.
Thank you so much, Cody.
My absolute pleasure.
Just to finalize this section so that we can get to all of the meat and potatoes of it all, are additional environmental justice digital tools and resources. These are fantastic. These are being added to the website. So we have the first, it's a climate reanalyzer. You're able to look at every form of data in terms of climate change, global racism in terms of climate change, global warming. This one here is an interactive atlas that looks at a number of different historical representations of climate racism, climate data again. We have our looking at our future. What does the future look like? This is a game that students can play at all ages. It's actually vetted for K-12 students. Looking at the Earth and seeing the different areas. Again, you click on, you're able to find information on that particular part. If you hone in on different areas, you can identify different types of environmental justice issues that are prevalent in that particular area. We have this particular website. It is the Global Atlas of Environmental Justice. And again, with tons of data and information. We have our online opportunities for educators who are looking to promote digital environmental justice, especially in the age of COVID-19. So it's different initiatives that students K-12 can take on. This is one example in order to advocate for environmental justice. And then finally, K-12 STEM or STEAM resources that focus on environmental justice in many different capacities throughout the world. So it gives a nice cross-sectional aspect to that. Okay, so at this point, we would love to open the conversation for critical dialogue. And Cody is going to vet most of the questions.
We'll
Karina,
attempt to
if
do so at
you're
least.
here to, attempt to, but I am here as well if needed. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes,
Thank you. Wonderful presentation, and I can see a lot of work has been gone into it. I really liked how you had those learning resources and activities for K-12. My question would be, can this resource be used in higher education, and what would it take if you want to cater to our audience like we are in the higher education? And
Absolutely. We focused the lessons that we built for K through 12 because that is where we saw the greatest deficiency in resources when talking on this subject, but there's absolutely application for higher education as well. Each of the lessons that we've integrated in here, the ones meant for K through grade 6 and so are a little bit on the juvenile side of things if we're talking about post-secondary or secondary education, but the grade 8 through 12 lessons are absolutely applicable. A lot of them involve researching your own neighborhood, your own community, the spaces that you occupy in a digital sense, what communities, what echo chambers are you inhabiting, a lot of self-reflection. So it is absolutely applicable to higher education.
great, great.
And just to add to that as well, the work that we're doing with the environment, the Ministry of the Environment and the Ministry of Sciences and Technology are geared towards the undergraduate and graduate studies level with appropriation to teacher candidates being used in the K-12 grades as well. So there is a lot of ongoing work that's happening with this particular resource, and really excited to be supporting that work.
To build off that as well, that is primarily the reason behind the next step section. These are areas of inquiry that we haven't had a chance to delve into too deeply yet, but would absolutely be applicable to all grade ranges, including post-secondary.
Okay. Any other questions? You are welcome to use your mic to ask a question, or you can put it in the chat. How do you plan to promote it? Because one of the things is, when you create a resource, how do you then market it, take it to the people who can actually make use of it? So do you have any contacts that you are introducing it in the schools here?
We are currently working on getting it into the hands of educators. As mentioned, this is an ongoing project. It's still being developed. We plan on expanding upon it as much as possible in the future, provided all things, including funding and application aside. But we would like to have it hosted through a couple of different options, either through the British Columbia Ministry of Education website or the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, or even through UBC's programs as an online resource. With our focus on open access, the promotion of it is relatively easy. I mean, getting the link out there will take some time, as all things do, to generate traffic, but we are definitely trying to get it into the hands of educators. That is our primary goal.
Great, thank you. And I see Natasha has her hand up.
Sorry, I was muted. It's not really a question. It's just, again, thank you for this wonderful presentation and for bringing this to us. And I know it may be premature, but it really nicely responds to Faiza's question. This is a conversation that we're having with the presenters at the moment to really make their presence more visible and more frequent in our faculty. So hopefully, for those who are listening to us today, we'll have that opportunity to share and work with Carina and Cody more, and with Dr. Ewart, of course, and have some of this available through LDBI or however we can share that. I think it's just one of those projects you want to tell everyone about. So
we're extremely excited about future options.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments? People are still thinking. Actually, this, climate racism, was that the term? It was still new to me. I mean, there are so many new terms that are emerging, and it feels like that all the learning we had when we were in school and college, it's kind of, we didn't learn these things because these problems are becoming in the forefront right now.
Mhm.
I think at every level, there is a need for that, ongoing learning and education. And I think all of us still need to go through these kind of resources, and they're valuable for everyone, So thank you so much. So we
There's
have
a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any or plan to collaborate with other organizational environmental organizations? Jesus, Christmas Christ. Yes, we do. We are open to it. We don't have any plans currently, but we are absolutely going into different avenues for collaboration. As Dr. Boskick mentioned, we are working through a bunch of different avenues through UBC as well as other organizations in getting this resource out there, getting collaboration, and increasing the accessibility to this. And of course, if you have questions or if you have comments or interaction that you want to share with the website, you can always use the share feedback function of the website itself. We do check that, and we do go through that and try to integrate any options or constructive criticisms that come our way.
Great.
As well, everybody has their emails here. And so if you have any questions, or if you have any ideas or wanting to connect with Cody or Carina on this particular project, there's a lot of grant writing happening right now and funding towards this project because it is such an important area right now of examination. And there's also talk of podcasts and a number of different ideas. So it's a risky and exciting time, especially for students to put their work out there. But this work is really, really important and needs to be put in the hand of everybody. Now, they say, is there limited to Canadian entry or open internationally? That's a really good question.
To touch on that, we are absolutely open to international influence. The only reason for the Canadian scope for this project was because of myself, Dr. Ewart's, and Carina's situation where we are all three of us living in Canada. So we wanted to share, building off of our own personal experiences. I haven't lived in any other country, so I can't speak with any form of authority on what environmental racism looks like in those countries, but I can speak to my own community. That's the reason we have the scope limited to Canada currently.
And it's also a response to a project from a class, and where they had to choose one curriculum, and that curriculum they chose was a BC curriculum, but welcoming and open to building capacity and being able to be representative of more countries, more nations, more cultures throughout the world. I know that Cody and Carina had plans of creating a podcast where they are speaking to people who are explicitly connected to and impacted by environmental racism, and hearing those pieces, as well as policymakers and discussing ways to improve that issue in that respect. So great questions. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And at this time, I think our time is concluded. Thank you for having us. And you can address everything. Cody and Carina's emails are up there, and I know that they would love to hear from you.
Yes,
Thank you
you
so
all
much.
for listening to us, and thank you for all the kind words in the chat as well. We appreciate it.
Yeah, lovely presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll post the survey link in the chat, and you can give us feedback on this session before we proceed to the next one.